Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Stretch It Out podcast.
Welcome.
You didn't do your whoop whoop.
I know. I was trying to switch it up. I'm going to try different avenues, you know?
Okay. I think you didn't do the whoop.
Maybe we should have a...
The issues we were having.
We need to have like a vote. Whoop whoop. Put it in.
A vote on what you're going to do?
We'll have a vote. You guys maybe can even suggest something, you know? Just DM saying you like the woot woot or you want something else. We can always try something else.
Okay, I'm down for that.
Yeah.
I think our the few folks listening might be down for that as well. But
Now we got 3.
Yeah. So we'll start off with our shout out to our listeners. We've got so much love for y'all.
Our continuous listeners through the thick and thin here.
So much love for our listeners, and we appreciate the feedback that we get from the listeners as well. And if you're new here, it's really easy. You want to give us any feedback, Audrey? Tell them how to do it.
You just DM me via Instagram, and my name is very simple. It's just Audrey_stretch. Simple. I don't even know what my photo is. Just look for a blonde girl.
And she's got a Facebook. She just doesn't know how to use it. So
yes, this is true. So anybody who knows how to work Facebook, please DM me as well, because I literally spent, sorry about that, that was work. I had literally spent 45 minutes trying to figure out how to delete photos, and I don't know the answer to that. So any help would be appreciated, guys.
She's going to need some help with Facebook, folks. She's going to need some help with Facebook. So now, today, we're talking about, what are we talking about? What's our topic?
Okay, so this one's kind of it's pretty, I think this one's pretty deep, and I think it's something that everybody suffers from. And even you, Nicholas, sometimes, even as outgoing as you are. We're going to speak about social anxiety.
Social anxiety. Yeah, it doesn't sound like, when you say social anxiety, it doesn't sound super exciting. When you talk about it, you're like, ooh, gosh, that could be kind of rough. But here on the Stretch It Out podcast, we tend to make things pretty exciting.
We do.
So if you struggle with social anxiety and you're listening to this, we hope to provide some corrective perspective today, and maybe even some tips on how we deal with social anxiety, and maybe some things that might help you in your battles with social anxiety. So I do have the doc up, our Google Doc, Audrey, and I like that you plugged some information in. Audrey gets extra credit. She gets extra credit because she was doing a little more than she has been. So that's good. And I think it's a good thing to start off with the definition of what social anxiety is. And Audrey has plugged that in for us. So I'll go ahead and read that to you.
Yes.
A condition in which social interactions cause irrational anxiety. How about some symptoms, Audrey?
Some of the symptoms are, are excess fear of situations in which one may be judged. I think all of us have that symptom, whether it's personal or in work life, professional life, whatever it may be. Another symptom is maybe worrying about embarrassment or humiliation. That's also one that I think everybody deals with.
Nailed it.
And 3, concern about offending someone. Just realized I spelled a someone terribly wrong in the doc. But I think concerned about offending someone is a huge one these days.
Yeah, saying the wrong thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, saying the wrong thing that could be misinterpreted. The intentions could be missed, right? So yes. I do, you kind of called me out. I do struggle with social anxiety. And it's funny because I was talking with some friends today at lunch, right? And we were talking about the podcast, right? And I think people think like I just walk around talking about the podcast now. And if you think that, you're right. That's all I do. So we were chatting about the podcast, and he, a good friend of mine, Dan, really good guy. He was like, well, what are you guys going to talk about? And I said, we're going to talk about social anxiety. And I kind of said, like, we all have it to some extent. And he was like, how could you have social anxiety? He's like, you were going to be a TV star. Cause I told him about back in the day when I was, on my way to become an actor when I was really young. And he's like, there's no way. And I said, well, that's the thing. I said, social anxiety isn't just a blanket thing, right? For everybody. Everybody's going to have it. I think we're going to have different extremes of it depending on where we're at, what we're doing. I think we're going to have, sometimes it's going to be minimal to non-existent, and it all depends on what it is we're going into and our perception of what it is we're going into. Right.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
And the big one for me, probably for most people, but I know for me, it's, I want to avoid the embarrassment of, saying the wrong thing or coming off the wrong way. Right. I want to avoid those things. And it's hard to do sometimes.
I think sometimes, because for you, I'm going to call you out here, Nick. I'm sorry. And you can call me out on mine. Is a lot of people who are worried about embarrassment or humiliation tend to make fun of themselves more than anybody else. Have you ever noticed that?
It's low self-esteem or it's lack of self-confidence, right? Which I've always struggled with. And
it's the defense mechanism, because even I do that. I do it all the time when I say something like, oh, hey, I'm going to ask a stupid question. Just give me a fair warning and then say my question. Like I'm already doubting myself.
Oh, I do it all the time. And yeah. And I have self-deprecating talk that's just not good too. Like my self-talk is bad a lot of times. And I'm working on that. Right. Yeah. I am. I'm trying to be intentional about that and catch myself in the moment, but I've done it for so long, folks. I've perfected this. Okay. And I do the same thing. I will introduce myself with, kind of, I'll do so in a way that I don't want to build anything up. Right. I want to under promise and over deliver. Right.
Yep.
I do that with anything that especially stuff that I, if I'm creating something, right. Like, I love music. I like to make music. I think my music sounds like crap. And the real reason I think that is because I hate the sound of my voice. Right.
It doesn't, guys. So, music does not sound like crap.
And so when I'm going to share my music with somebody, which is really sad that these days I share it with so few people, and I record music and then I don't share it with anybody. That's all stems from social anxiety, right? Me not wanting to share something that I've created. There's social anxiety that's blocking me from that, which is stupid, right? And that's why I'm so glad we're talking about this, because I'm really hoping that I get some corrective perspective out of this and I start putting my music online, and I overcome that fear. But my point in saying all that is I do the same thing. I'll set myself up, I'll tell somebody, hey, I like, for example, Chris Phillips, I share my music with him, I always share my music with him. Right. And with my music, it's kind of like, I don't know. It's weird. And I'll even tell Chris, I'll be like, hey man, it's not good. Like don't get your hopes up, but go ahead, check it out, And I'll be honest, I've done the same thing with this podcast. People are like, oh, what are you guys talking? And as soon as like someone gets a little bit excited, I'm like, whoa, buddy. It's hey now. Everybody has, I'm like, everybody has a podcast. Okay. And there's a good chance everybody else's podcast is better than ours. I shouldn't be talking like that. Now, I shouldn't be going on the flip side either and being like, but I should have enough confidence, right? In whatever it is that I'm doing or whatever it is that I'm a part of. I should have enough confidence to be able to present that to people without fear of my feelings getting stepped on.
Well, I think like me, for like speaking of this podcast, is that I have a shitty mic. And before I kept thinking like, man, I don't want to like tell anybody about this podcast just yet because the mic sucks. Like, and I'm not willing to go out and spend $200 on a mic right now. That's just my thing. Right. But at this point, it's like everybody starts somewhere. And even though I'm not going to spend the $200 today, or your mic was what, $400, I'm not going to spend that much, but like, I'm going to do it later on. So why not get people started in the podcast now so they know what we're talking about and what we're all about later on? And I'm not going to care about
people are going to get over that. And people are going to get over that stuff, right? All the stuff that we blow up. Nobody else freaking cares.
The whole thing of the podcast isn't about having a great mic. It's about the message that we're trying to convey to people. That's all it is. So if they get my message, they're not going to care about my shitty mic. Sorry, guys, drop the S word. But yes. So going over this made me realize that this week. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I'm on a new mic, and I'm sorry you guys have to listen to me through this crappy mic right now. But next week, I'm going to have a better one. So just suck it up right now and listen to the message.
But you bring up a good point, Audrey. Like, that's what social anxiety is for all of us. I think we're taking this marginalized thing and making it the mainstream, right? Like, I've got kind of a silly story, but and this is why I wanted, one of the reasons I want Nick Johnson to come on this podcast, because,
somehow.
Yeah. And all of you listening, both of you listening, know Nick Johnson. I grew up with him. He was my best childhood friend. Right. And he knows this story, right? And we honestly, I don't think we've talked about it since then, but I'm going to talk about it now. And it totally goes, it ties into what we're talking about, social anxiety. And I'll never forget, I went to the bus stop, and if those of you that didn't know me when I was younger, I mean, my face is still pretty jacked up. Like, let's be real, but I had like really bad acne, and I had it like really bad, like on my cheeks, like really bad. And for whatever reason, though, this one particular day, I had like this gnarly pimple. I wouldn't even call it a pimple. Like, it had like, real estate on my forehead. Okay. It was big. And I was, I knew, obviously I looked in the mirror and I was like, man, that sucks. Right. And for whatever reason, like I go to the bus stop, and I'm kind of like, I'm just going to, like, I'm good. Like, I'm just going to go to school. I'm going to do this thing. And of course, one of my friends, I don't remember who it was like, damn, dude, what's up? You got a big old pimple on your forehead? And I'm like, yeah, I do. Right.
I didn't see it.
I literally was like, I'm going home. And I walked home. Right. And I remember calling Mom, and I was like, hey, I decided to stay home today. And I was pretty honest with Mom. I didn't have to lie to her. She was like, well, why are you staying home? I was like, I got this really big freaking pimple on my forehead, and I'm embarrassed about it, And Mom was just kind of like, okay, it's fine. You can stay home. So, but I say that because what a silly thing to do, because had I just gone to school that day, nobody would have freaking cared, And it's like,
and even if they did say something in that day, do you think they're going to remember that 20 years down the road?
Well, it doesn't matter. Like, now I've got to be able to look my kids in the face and tell them to get over this stuff, right? Like, just do it with, like, who cares? Don't worry about the wrong things. And that's that social anxiety really is. It really is just the wrong perspective. You're worrying about the wrong things. You're focused on all the wrong things, and it stems from not having the self-esteem, the confidence in yourself, right? To just step up and overcome that fear. And I know, for me, I know when it's going to show up, right? Like, I can feel it. My hands get clammy. I still deal with it today a lot in my, just with work, right? Because I work with a lot of people that are just really smart people. And I have over the years done a really poor job of working on my own self-confidence, right? So I tend to just kind of hold other people, in a higher regard than I do myself. And that results in social anxiety, right? So I think not having just enough confidence in myself to just be me, right? And you kind of feel like, okay, like, I want to be loved for who I am. You know what I mean? But for me, that's a big one. Like, just being around different people, especially with work, that I just feel like, man, I don't even know what to say, right? Instead of overcoming that and just, hey, letting everybody see me, right? Like, I'm just going to be me. And so what if you don't like me? Right? Yeah. Like, that sounds bad, but that's really the attitude I think we have to have. And especially if we're talking to the youth right now, if we're talking to the kids, if we're talking to the teenagers, I mean, we're talking about something that probably right now, social anxiety, I think, just affects so many of us, but I mean, if you had to pick a spot where it's freaking gnarly, I would guess junior high, high school, right?
Yeah. Especially right now. With all the, which we'll get to later on, but yeah. There's, I think a lot of times too, when you talk about, you know, if you don't like me, then that's okay. I think that nowadays, a lot of people are so, we were trained to like everybody. But I think, how do I say this? I think we misinterpreted the message that was being conveyed to us. I think the actual message was respect everybody else, right? But you don't have to like somebody. And that's
or everybody.
Okay. Yes. You don't have to like everybody, but you're still going to respect them as a human being. You know, you don't have to be rude to them. And I think a lot of times, just because if I were to tell you, Nick, I don't like you, I think so many people get offended by that. And I don't think we should be so soft in that.
I agree 100%. I agree with that.
It's like with social media. If you don't like what somebody's posting or what they stand for or something, and you go and unfollow them, why do we or them get so frustrated with that and so hurt by it?
Right.
You know?
Yeah, and we do. It's natural, right? So I think it's acknowledging the first thing that, hey, that's kind of natural. Like, I don't want anyone listening to think like, well, that's how I am, and does that make me weird? No, that makes you normal, right?
Yes.
But all of us also have the ability to overcome that. All of us also have the ability to change that, and it starts with, for me, really, if you want to figure out how to manage social anxiety, I guess we'll call it, right? It's like, it's not a box you can just check, right? It's not it's not like you go watch a YouTube video with Gary Vee and he's breaking it down and you're like, man, yeah, this guy's so right. And you walk away and you're freaking, you're lit at that point. Now, it doesn't work like that, right? No, you still have to deal with social anxiety. It still exists, right? But I think one of the best ways to help you start managing that is understanding where social anxiety is coming from, right? Yeah. Understand, that's a big one for me, right? Root cause analysis, like who's selling me this anxiety that I'm buying, right? Mm-hmm. Who's it coming from? Well, it's fear. It's fear. And I say this all the time to myself. I'm constantly telling myself, well, fear is a liar, right? Yeah. Fear is a liar. Think about it. I mean, I'm talking about the fear that keeps you in your comfort zone. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? The fear that keeps you from stepping out, right? And reaching your full potential. I'm not talking about the fear that should exist, right? If I'm standing on top of a building, I want that fear of, okay, I don't want to jump off, right?
Yes.
That's a good fear. But fear, the kind of fear, for example, like I used to get as a kid, I would think, man, there's no way. I remember going to Disneyland and like, I'm not going to go on that ride. Why? Because I was afraid, right? Well, I was afraid of things, right? That just were made up in my head, right? But what happened as soon as I went on that ride? I was on the other side of fear, and on the other side of fear was like this whole new level of excitement and joy, right? And just adrenaline that had I listened to fear, I would have missed out on entirely. And the same is true when we're talking about social anxiety. Remember who's selling it to you first, okay? First and foremost, if I'm a teenager today and I'm listening to this podcast and I'm going, and I struggle with social anxiety, I think that's the first thing I want to be able to understand and pick up and go, okay, step number 1, remember who's selling it to me. It's fear. Fear is selling me social anxiety. Fear's only job is to keep you in your comfort zone. Okay? Fear doesn't bring you success. Fear doesn't bring you new joy and experiences in life. Fear keeps that from you. And fear, that's why, again, I say fear is a liar. So remember that. Fear, the liar, is selling you this social anxiety. So I think that helps for me. Okay, that's in putting it into perspective to at least start to break it down. Is that fair? Am I getting like confusing?
No. Because that's all it is. When you think about social anxiety, you have all these different situations or made up thoughts of, oh, what could happen, right? So they're kind of like floating
Yes.
around. But if you were to narrow it down into what it is, it's fear, and it's you creating that fear.
Yes. And
so now instead of you battling these 20 million different thoughts or situations or what if, things like that, now it's just you and your fear, just one-on-one.
Exactly. And now you can actually, to your point, see it for what it is, right? Well, it's just a lie. And it's a lot of things that I'm making up in my head. It's just so many what ifs. And you can do that all day, right? Again, fear. Fear can play you those reruns all day, right? Of all the things that you're afraid of. But if you can understand that, hey, this is just fear talking to me, and really map out what it is that, especially for me, like when I'm going into something that I know, I'm going to be a little more nervous. I'm going to have a little more social anxiety. Why don't you play a couple scenarios out in your head that, could realistically happen, right? Mm-hmm. And I've gone even to the point of just going, well, let's play out worst case scenario here, right? Sometimes for me that helps me. I play out worst case scenario and I go, okay, well, if that happens, I'm still good to go. I'm still going to be alive tomorrow. I still, you know what I mean? Like I'm okay. Yeah. Like I'm fine. And again, worst case scenario doesn't play out, right?
Very rarely does it.
Not the one you're making up. Okay. The worst case scenarios that I make up have never played out because they're too freaking gnarly. Okay. They're just too gnarly. Right. And I think, again, trying to keep it in perspective, right? Keep it realistic here. Like, why do I have social anxiety to begin with? Well, you bought the lie, right? You bought the lie. So then the next step is, well, how do I overcome that? How do I better manage that? How do I mitigate that so that I can step out, and show the world who I am? Because every one of us is unique and special, and every one of us has a story to tell, and every one of us has somebody that's watching that can learn, that can be better, right? In watching you do your thing. And if you're not doing your thing, if you're not doing you because you're allowing things like social anxiety to keep you down, think about the people that you're letting down that you don't even know exist, right?
Yeah. It's crazy to think too, especially like looking back at like when I was in high school. Obviously now, still keeping in touch with all my high school friends, I learned a lot. I mean, I don't think I was like incredibly shy or anything like that in high school. I think I didn't really care about anybody else, to be honest. I think it was just me in my zone. But speaking to them now, a lot of them have told me like, hey, we actually looked up to you because you did this, or, you really inspired me to go on the track and field team because you talked me into it and you did certain things where I didn't realize that I didn't impact or I impacted those people without even realizing it, without even trying.
Huge.
So it's like, even if you're not necessarily waking up every day to impact somebody, you're just trying to get over your social anxiety or manage it, I should say. And if you feel just very intimidated by it, just always think back that there's other people looking at you, but they're not looking at you in a negative way like you think. They're looking at you in a way of, hey, I look up to you and you inspire me every day, but hey, maybe their social anxiety kicks in and they're too scared to tell you that.
Yeah. Interesting take on that too. I think I'll tell you, for me, I've kind of developed like a switch or a trigger for me to help me intentionally manage social anxiety. And sometimes it's right before I'm going to walk into the room, I'm going to walk into a big meeting. I remind myself, I take a deep breath and I remind myself to just keep my head up. Just keep my head up. Because for me, social anxiety, if it starts to weigh down, I tend to just want to put my head down and kind of just keep myself in the corner, right? Instead, I just go, you know what, put your head up. And I just remind myself, look, I'd rather be hated for who I really am than loved for who I'm not. And, just remind myself to put my head up. And when I walk into that room, I'm looking at you. I'm looking at each individual, right? I'm looking at them in their eyes. I'm shaking hands. And what you see is what you get. And here's the best part about it. The best part about managing social anxiety for me, and it may not be this way for everybody else, but for me, it's as soon as I make that decision that, okay, it's not going to get the best of me, it's almost completely gone after my first interaction with somebody. It's, maybe it's just the first word that I've spoken to somebody, right? And I've actually, as I've grown older, I've gotten better at just breaking that ice, if you will, with individuals, with people. Social anxiety can show up when you're in the elevator with somebody, right? Yeah. Like, okay, and the best way for me to overcome it is to say something, because it goes away like that, right? Hey, good morning. How are you? Right. And I've had that happen where I'm like, hey, good morning. How are you? And they don't respond to me. Right.
Yeah.
And guess what? And guess what? I didn't walk away with any bruises. Right.
Yeah.
I didn't let it hurt my feelings. I was like,
you didn't walk away offended.
Cool. Right on. Yeah. Right on. No big deal. Right. I was too chipper for that person. I get it. It's early in the morning. No problem. Right. And sometimes it's not that simple. I get that. But I think understanding and trying to explain to the listeners now that might be struggling with social anxiety is you just got to be able to say, screw you, fear. And I'm just going to do me. Yeah. And I promise you, you're going to be happier. You're going to have more fun. You're going to have more fun actually being a part of the experience instead of being the person that's trying to get away from it.
Yes. Rather than being the person on the outside looking in.
Yeah, and I've got stories, right, of things that just, I think that too makes it tough, right? Especially if you're a teenager, right?
Yeah.
I look at Noah, right, 10 years old, and I worry about those things. And I look at Emma, she's only 8, and she's already, she's dealing with social anxiety all the time, right? And she'll just shut down, mm-hmm. and it's tough, right? Because you see that and you're like, oh, you as a parent, you can see that a lot of the stuff they're putting up, that they're afraid of is just imaginary. Like they've just somehow put it all together. But it does tend to happen to you after you've had a bad experience, right? So I think it's being able to get over those things as well. And again, reminding yourself that you don't need to go through life trying to impress people, especially people you don't even care about to begin with, right? Like, you don't go through life, you don't live life like that. That's not living life. I mean, that's like, what a terrible way to live, right? You need to go through life living and being your best self. And instead of trying to avoid people, you should actually be looking for people that could use a hand up from you, right? That could use, maybe a conversation. Be that person, right? And be the person that when people go, man, like my buddy, man, there's no way you even deal with social anxiety. Well, yeah, I do deal with social anxiety, right? And it's kind of like, man, like I need to talk about that more if people think that, I don't deal with social anxiety, because now I'm creating this unrealistic thing too for people, right? That go, well, I guess I could never do those things because I really struggle with social anxiety.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, I used to work in my previous position. So that's my thing. Cause, like I said, I have social anxiety, but how I try to overcome it every day is, talking to like a complete stranger or someone that's in your profession and speaking, even though they're on a different team, just reaching out to them and speaking to them, even though they don't know who you are. So in a previous position that I had, there was a big party, everything. And my goal, this was my goal going in, I like meditated on it, was that I was going to talk to every single person at that party and tell them my name, and I was going to learn their name.
Nice.
It was probably like a party at least maybe like 80 people. So I didn't remember every single person's name, but I definitely remember their faces and I remember the conversations that we have. And it was eye-opening to me, because then when like weeks later down the road, one of my teammates told me, and they were like, "Oh, well, you're not shy at all. You're not scared to go talk to people. Like you go talk to that person." And I kind of turned around and I said, "What do you mean I'm not scared to talk to people?" I said, "I'm always terrified to talk to people." And they didn't understand it. And they were like, well, yeah, but you were at that party a few weeks ago and you were talking to everybody. And I said, yeah, but I'm still scared, but I did it.
But I like how you initiated it.
It's the only way you get over it. And it wasn't something that I was going up in the elevator and was like, oh, okay, I'm going to try and talk to everybody. It was something where I was flying in and I said, this is going to be a big deal and I want people to remember my name. So I need to get over this fear and put myself out there. And if I fall, I fall. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? They're going to remember me as the girl who fell or something, you know?
Right.
It didn't matter to me, but what mattered to me was that getting everybody's name and knowing that I did that. So that's how I overcome just a small social anxiety for me.
Well,
going into parties and things.
I like that because you're owning it. Yeah. You're taking control though. You're taking control of it, right? You're saying, not only am I not buying the lie, but I'm actually, I'm going completely the opposite way, and I'm going to be the person that's, breaking the ice, so to speak. I'm the person I'm going to be as social as I can be. And sometimes that, that can help out, I mean, what that did for you though, Audrey, and that is the next time you find yourself in a similar position, your brain is going to remember that, like, oh yeah, you owned this, you're good, right? Because fear only exists until you've done something for the first time. After that, that fear is either completely gone or it's at least a little bit less than what it was, right? It's not as potent as it was. And you can apply that to so many different things in life, right? Like for me, I travel for work, and you've traveled. And for me, a lot of times, if it's the first time I'm going to the city, first time I'm flying into an airport, right? I'm a little more nervous about because I've not done it yet. It's a new layout. But guess what? The second time I go it's basically as if I was there 30 times, because that's all it took was the first time. I got the first time out of the way. I'm on to the next, I'm good to go. It's no different when you're talking about social anxiety. If you find yourself constantly in a position that you're like, man, I'm really like social anxiety, like it's really tough for me. Find something small like Audrey did, right? Don't do what Audrey did, right? I think that would be crazy.
Don't do like 80 people.
Yeah. But I'm saying find something that you go, you know what? I'm going to own that. And I'm going to be the person, that's doing the complete opposite. I'm going to be me. I'm going to do the complete opposite and own that. Maybe it's just a conversation with somebody that you're deciding, you know what? I'm not going to let the social anxiety be who I am or determine who I am and what I'm saying and how I'm acting. Like, I'm going to set that to the side. Right. And you can do that. Anybody, no matter where you're at in life, if you're feeling the social anxiety, maybe you're on a phone call, maybe you're hanging out with friends at school, maybe you're doing something with some people at work. If you feel it coming on, you can tell yourself in that moment, wait a second, I'm not here. I'm not going to buy that lie. I'm not going to do it. Your self-talk is real talk. Okay. And we're going to do a podcast on that. We're going to do an episode on that. But self-talk is real talk. And so, remember that when you're telling yourself something, that's real talk. That can create real action, right? And you can tell yourself that, right? Even if you're in, elementary school, right? Junior high, you can tell yourself, wait a second, I'm not going to buy the lie. And just making that decision in that moment, being able to do that in that moment could be game changing for you.
And I think that so we think of social anxiety and we're looking at ourselves, right? We don't want to be judged by our peers, or we don't want to be humiliated or embarrassed. I think this is more surrounding, more so around the youth, but it could be, in adulthood too. But do you remember when you were in junior high and high school and you had your clique of friends, right? Or you were in sports and you had, I had my track and field buddies, my cross country buddies and things like that. That's your clique that sometimes I think we have social anxiety that you're so scared to step outside of that clique to go and whether it's befriend somebody else or give a compliment or talk to somebody else because that person wasn't in your clique.
Right.
I think that's a huge one for the youth is because they're so used to their friends. And I see it even now. I shouldn't even say youth. I see it so many times, like when I go to parties here and I see the cliques and I'm just like, oh gosh, like they won't step away from those group of friends to go and say, hello, welcome to the party to somebody else who just walked in.
Right.
Because their social anxiety, it's not about the judgment of what the person they want to go say hello to. It's more of the judgment of the people, their clique that they're hanging out with. Does that make sense? Did I word that correctly?
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense.
So I think that's another big social anxiety there, because I mean that I feel like that's what I faced when I was like more so in elementary school. But that was a big one that I think I faced.
I think, yeah. Let's talk about, though, the stuff that, you know, and you kind of, what you were saying kind of made me think about this. I mean, there are things that all of us as individuals have got to learn to overcome in terms of how we feel about ourselves. Not even how we feel about it, how we look at ourselves. Okay. And usually when we talk about how we look at ourselves, we're comparing ourselves to how society teaches us we should look.
Yes.
And there are people, and I can say this because I'm there, you know, there's people out there that they don't look the way they want to look. Okay. And I'll tell you this, that's probably the case for everybody. If you asked anybody, like, they'd probably give you a long list of things that they would want to change. Right.
We'll start off with my list.
Right. But we have to understand it. We have to understand that we were made, really, we were made perfectly by a perfect God. And I'm not trying to force my faith on anybody here, but this is, for me, this helps me, right? Especially when I'm feeling kind of, oh man, like I don't look as good as I wish I looked in the mirror, because that, a lot of people's social anxiety comes from that alone, right? And you've got to be able to look at yourself and be honest and find the things about yourself that make you beautiful. Find the things about yourself that make you the person that you are, right? And I promise you, those are the things that are going to attract the types of people that you want around you anyway, right? Having a, it's a biased self-image, right? That I think socially anxious people, they're going to feel anxious or awkward just because they think they appear that way. Does that make sense? Like they think like, I don't look right. I don't look the part. I don't, I'm not skinny enough. I'm not tall enough. I'm not pretty enough. None of that crap matters. Right. And you've got it on there, social media, which I know we're going to get into, but who are you listening to? What are you listening to that's making you think that way? And figure out how to stomp that out right away. So if it was a comment that somebody made to you when you were younger, or a comment that someone made to you recently, right? Cut that out immediately, because those things, anything that someone said to you that's not, it wasn't intended for your good, isn't worth paying any mind to. Okay. So the only stuff you want to listen to and you want to take heed to, someone's advice, it's got to be people that are that have your best interest at heart. They want what's best for you. Okay. So if someone's telling you something or has said something to you in the past, you need to be able to let that go. And sometimes that means forgiving that person for what they said, right? You don't have to go up to them and say, hey, I forgive you. Just forgive them in your heart enough so that you can let it go. Right? People talk about carrying around baggage. That's baggage. You don't want that. You need to let it go. Right? I've seen people like write it down on a piece of paper and set it on fire, or, do something to make sure that is no longer going to occupy any space in your brain, because you don't have room for that stuff.
And when you hold on to something like that, you're not even hurting the other person. You're hurting yourself. Like, that's what you're doing.
Yeah, they're not walking around going, oh, this is painful that you're holding on to my bad comments.
Yeah. If they said a bad comment, they really don't care. They've already forgotten what they said to you, and they probably don't even remember it. But you do, because we take things so personal sometimes. especially as females. Us girls can remember anything, tooth and nail, to the date, to the time, everything. What the weather was.
And holding a grudge is
yes. But you gotta let it go. In order for you, I'm gonna make this up. You gotta let it go so that you can grow. Hashtag trademark that.
I like that. Let it go so you can grow, because you are either going to grow from it or you're not.
Yeah.
And if you're holding on to something that someone has said to you, maybe there was an embarrassing moment, you've got to be able to walk away from that and just go, cool, it is what it is. But that doesn't make you, that's not who you are, right? Who you are is who you decide to be right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's how you react to it. Not
who you were yesterday, right? It's who you are and who you decide to be right now. And social anxiety, for those of us that just, our self-image isn't where we want it to be, we've got to get over that. You've got to get over that. Surround yourself with the people that are speaking positive things into you and into your life. Some of us listening might need to, really, if you're really struggling with social anxiety, some of us listening might need to consider who it is we're hanging out with all the time. But it's not.
They say you are who. What's that saying? You are who you hang out with. Like the 5 closest people to you. That's who you are.
Yep, that's what they say. And when we say they, that's people that are smarter than us. I guess that's just what we assume when we say that.
Statistics, scientists, people who got money to do stuff. But our surveys only have 3 people on them, guys. So.
But I think it does start, though, with understanding, just acknowledging the fact that it's normal to have social anxiety.
Yeah.
I think starting with that, just look, it's natural. That is a natural thing. So don't freak out when you're like, oh my God, I've got social anxiety. This is crazy. Right? Because I have a feeling that maybe someone's listening and they're going, man, I think I have social anxiety. I didn't realize that. Everyone's got to deal with it. Okay?
Everyone has it.
Everybody's dealing with it constantly, 24/7. I dealt with it just before I got on this podcast to record this episode.
And anybody who thinks that they don't have social anxiety, I'm sorry, but you're lying to yourself.
We're all dealing with it. It's just easier for some of us to deal with than others because we've worked on it, right? And but it's there. Trust me, it's there. And just understanding that it's natural, I think, makes it a little bit easier of a let's call it a dragon to slay, if you will, because it's not as big and crazy and as you might make it out to be. Okay.
Even like I said, I got social media listed on here, but I even look at social media. I look at, I'll go on there and look at, tutorials on how to do new hairstyles or makeup and things like that. And I think with somebody who's got such a young mind that's still developing, I think because they have access to those videos, that in their head, they assume oh, okay, that's beautiful, so I need to look just like that. But that's not the case. And I think, like I said, a lot of videos, a lot of things can be misconstrued, that we see certain things on social media. Like for me, I follow, bathing suit lines, and I see all these skinny girls up there, and I'm like, God, I want a body like that. But I'm like, I gotta work for that, and I hate it. But,
right.
But first of all, before I sit there and say oh, I want to look like her, I don't want to look like her. I want to love myself.
That's really what you want.
Yeah. And I have to remind myself when I see things like that on social media.
Right. And are you capable of loving yourself right now?
Yeah.
That's really what comes at. Can I love myself right now? And if the answer is no, because you don't look the way, that you want to look, right? Well, then, man, my heart breaks for you, because that is just, it's such a shallow way to live.
Yes.
And there's, life can take you so much deeper. But you've got to be able to just, here's something that just came to mind for me. I've always been, and I mentioned it with my music, right? You want to share my music with a lot of people because I don't think it sounds that good, right? But I do want to share it with people, right? That's the messed up part, is I want someone to listen to it and go, I really like that. right? I want that. I want that affirmation, or, just like, yes, okay, like he made a good song, and but I want more than that. I want someone to be able to say, man, that song that you wrote like really helped me with it, right? And the only way that's ever going to happen is if I overcome that, that's that fear that I have, right, of letting that go. And when we talk about social anxiety, oh man, a big thing for me that I just did recently. You know how I'm into RC cars, right? I don't think we're going to ever get through an episode where we don't talk about RC cars.
We were so close, guys. So close.
But I mean, I just love it. I love it so much. It's just it's so much fun. And I just, I said, screw it. I'm going to make some YouTube videos, right? And I remember thinking to myself, like, I don't think that I'm the best, I'm not a very photogenic, person to be putting on video, right? Like fear showed up for me in a big way, right? Like I was all excited, I'm going to do this thing. And then when it came down to, to like, okay, I'm going to do this thing, let me tell you, fear was there. It showed up in a big way. And I'm talking about the same fear that's feeding us the social anxiety, right? And I made the right decision. I just said, screw it. I don't care, right? I don't want to say I don't care what anybody else thinks. But what I did tell myself was, I don't care what anybody that doesn't care about me thinks.
Yeah.
Okay. And I said, I don't care. And I said, I'm going to do this for a couple reasons, right? One, because I want to do it, right? But two, I did it because I wanted to overcome some of those fears. And one of them was, who cares if I don't, look the way I want to look? Who cares if I don't sound the way I want to sound? And honestly, who cares if I don't know what I'm freaking talking about? Because I don't when it comes to RC. I just love it, right? So I said, you know what? I'm not going to make it about me anyway. I'm going to make it about, growing the community. I'm going to make it about growing RC, right? And I was able to overcome that fear. And what that did for me was kind of opened up this whole new world. Now I'm like, I've been recording my music more, right? Because I've got plans to put it out now, right? I've got big plans for my music that I didn't have for a long time. It was just dormant. Like, well, Nick, you suck. You're never going to. But doing that one thing, overcoming that one fear, my point in sharing that with everybody, has really opened up a whole new world for me. And now I'm kind of seeking other fears to overcome because I didn't realize how easy it was, right?
Yeah.
And this podcast is an example. I called Audrey. We talked for a while, and I remember like just saying, hey, I'm doing this thing. Like I'm going all out. Like I'm going to freaking, I'm going to do this podcast and you're going to do it with me. Right.
You don't have a say.
And, but that was another thing. Like that was a big deal for me. Like, I'm doing it because there's things I want to say and there's things I want to talk about, but I'm also doing it because I really do feel like there's inspiration behind that. Not inspiration in, yes, I want there to be inspiration in the words that I'm saying, right? But I think there's also inspiration in just the human element of it all. Inspiration behind the fact that it's not perfect. Inspiration behind the fact that Audrey's mic is shitty. Inspiration behind the fact that we don't know what we're doing, right? But we're doing it. You know what I mean? We're doing it.
We truly don't know. Nick, where are you at right now? Are you in Dallas?
I'm in Frisco. Yeah, it's like Dallas area, like it's outside of Dallas. But Frisco, Texas is where I'm at. Where are you at?
So still in Vegas.
Nice.
But okay, like that's what people. A lot of times, fear comes in ways of excuses, right? So if Nick was truly scared, if the fear would have stepped in, he would have said, "Oh, well, I'm traveling this week, and we can't do the podcast." Or
that's a good way of thinking about that. I didn't even think about that.
Right. So you're traveling and you're doing all these things, and sorry, I'm like losing my voice right now. I don't know why. I don't smoke 12 packs a day, guys. I swear.
Yeah, just one.
Just 1.5. But that's what I think a lot of times fear comes in the form of excuses.
I think so too. And that's how we buy it. It comes at the expense of excuses, right?
There you go.
Like that's what that's how we're buying it, right? We make excuses and then we lose out on what it was we should have done.
And it's such a big loss. I always think of people who they're so terrified to take a plane ride somewhere because they're so scared of being in like a confined space, like a claustrophobic kind of a thing. And that's like, I don't have that issue. So it kind of blows my mind because I'm like, you are closed off from so much because of that one fear, that you could be experiencing so many new things that you could only literally dream of because of your fears.
But think about that, right? Again, it's corrective perspective, Audrey, because you brought up something really cool. It made me think of, I know some people that just have that fear, right? Flying, right? Mm-hmm. Think about what happens to that fear, though. If I told you, hey, if you get on this airplane, you're going to make $5,000. I'm going to give you $5,000. Or if I told you, hey, if you get on this airplane, you're going to meet your future significant other, right? If we could tell you how it's going to play out every time, and I could make it positive, and I'm just telling you this, right? If you bought my lie over the lie that fear's giving you, at least my lie's probably got a better chance of something good happening, right? And I say that because it's crazy, because it's all perspective. It's all not true, right? Anxiety, right? Anxiety, I think isn't that really what I don't know the definition of anxiety, but isn't it something like it's not true, right? Like when you're, I'm going to look it up real quick. Anxiety.
Oh, I'm looking it up right now. I'm like, so we can get the actual definition.
Yeah, well, just anxiety. It says you read it. Go for it.
Okay, so it's anxiety, a feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease, typically about an imminent event or something with an uncertain outcome. But think about it. Life is an uncertain outcome. So you're going to be scared of life?
Well, that's the thing, though. That's what's crazy about it, is it's kind of something, it's just a filler, right? Like, we're all going to die, right? Everybody's going to die. How we live, right? Mm-hmm. If I'm going to live the rest of my life focused on the fact that I'm going to die, what's your perspective there? Is your perspective, wow, I better do as much as I can before that happens? Or is your perspective, oh man, well, I'm going to die anyway? You've got a choice to make there. Yeah, I went to the extreme on that fork in the road, but that's what it comes down to. Social anxiety, when it shows up, you are at that same fork in the road, right? Mm-hmm. Are you going to live right now? Or are you just going to, turtle back into your shell and then wonder why you're not happy, wonder why you don't want to go do anything, right? Wonder why you don't ever want to go out. I don't want to go do any of that because it's work, right? It's work to be social. Yep. Absolutely, it's work. Exactly. But all the best things in life come from some form of work, right? Meeting people. I've met people that in my life that I'm like, how is it that I didn't meet you 2 years ago? Right? Mm-hmm. How did I not meet you 2 years ago? I got a perfect example. Chris Phillips, right? His son was playing with Noah. I mean, I've lived there now for 6 years, I think. I didn't meet that guy. I don't think it must have been at least a year or two before I actually met him. And it wasn't, because like I never had it just never happened, right? It wasn't like I was trying to avoid the guy or anything like that, right? But
you just never crossed paths.
But it just never happened. And when I finally met Chris, I was like, oh my God. Like, I remember like in the first hour of us talking, I think I said, did we just become best friends? Because that's
I love friendship like that.
Well, that's the kind of guy he is. I mean, he's just a really, really good dude. He's genuine. He cares, right? And he's just a good person. And I mean, we connected on so many things, but the big one was music. He listened to the same kind of music as me. And I've met so many people like that where you're just like, man, how did I not meet you years ago? Think about the people, in your life now, in your world now, even if it's school or work, right? That maybe your social anxiety is keeping you from really having something with that person. The when the day comes and you have the opportunity to make the other decision, when that fork in the road shows up, I'm going to succumb to my social anxiety, or I'm going to overcome it. Make the right decision and see what happens. Beautiful things grow outside of your comfort zone. Right?
Yeah. And it's amazing, guys. It's amazing. I love stepping, and at this point, like how you said that you're out seeking fear now.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. So in so many ways.
The same thing for me. Like, okay, anybody who knows me, 3 listeners, I love to travel, and I love traveling alone, especially like to other countries, because to show
She's
up
a weirdo.
Yes. Also, guys, I'm just trying to get stolen or something. No. But being able to travel by yourself gives me more of a reason to step out of my comfort zone or to face that social anxiety, because I don't have a friend to use as a crutch or an excuse of not talking to other people or meeting new people and learning their stories.
That's like next level stuff. I am not at that level.
I'm not telling everybody to
mad respect for you for that. No, but seriously, I'm thinking like I'm proud of you for that, Audrey. Like that's super cool. Like I can't even imagine having myself like being there, but that's cool. Like that's huge.
Because even if it's just something for you to stop in the middle of the road, and let's say you're walking down the street, and for you to stop and ask for directions, like that's that is very rare these days, because so many people just pull out their phone and go onto Google or something. But I love, if I'm walking somewhere, I did it a lot when I went to Europe in the UK, and I just didn't want to use my phone service because it was going to cost me a lot of money. So I was walking and I was like stopping and asking people, and it was so funny by some of the looks these people gave me. But here, I have a great story. Sorry, this led me to something else. Like I said,
story time.
Okay, so when I went to the UK, I was trying to find this museum, and I had seen it, like it was posted in my hotel, and I was like, okay, these 2 crossing streets, I'm going to go find it there. So I was walking and I kind of got lost, and ended up finding this statue of, it was an angel, but it was made out of like metal. And I kept trying to look at it, and I'm like, what kind of metal is this made out of? And then once I learned it was made out of knives. So everybody knows the UK, they don't have guns there, but they have a high like knife crime rate there. So I sat down, I was looking at it, and there was just an older man and his wife that were sitting next to me, and I just kind of like got up and scooted towards them and asked them about what the statue was, because I couldn't read it because it was surrounded by other tourists. And I ended up having an hour and a half conversation with them. One of the sweetest couple I ever met. And I learned a lot about their story. Their son actually was murdered from a guy with a knife. Mm-hmm. And so, it's so sad. I don't want to cry, but yeah. So their son was 19, and he was at one of the train stations, like their subways or the tube, they call it. And he was getting robbed pretty much, and he was trying to defend himself and fight him off. And nope, they got him and they stabbed him. So they said that day that I saw them, it was one day after his anniversary. They tried to go to the angel, like memorial thing every year on his anniversary of his death, but they couldn't make it the day before because it was like completely rainy. It was really bad. It was the worst day I was there. So they said that they showed up the next day, and I took that very personal, and I was just like, okay, well, I felt like we met for a reason, and if I didn't step out of my comfort zone and go and scoot to them, that's something that I would have never learned, ever.
Yeah, it's crazy. Something so beautiful, and
gives you a different perspective on other people's lives and what they're going through too. That's what I love. That's me facing my fear. That's me getting my high from that.
Well, I think that's super cool, because I'm just now kind of on this new ride in life for me, and nothing's changed, right? That's what's crazy. Like, I'm so glad I'm doing it now, and I didn't wait until I freaking won the lottery, or all this other BS that I was playing out in my head, you know, I'm so glad that I've decided to make these changes now and start seeking out how to overcome the things, the fears that have, you know, kept me back for so long, and, you know, climbing out of depression and all that stuff. Like I'm excited about it, you know, and I'm glad I'm doing it now. I'm not waiting for my situation to change to start doing things that I want to do. Start doing things that I love to do and things that I enjoy doing, right? Those are the things that I'm just going to do for the rest of my life. Why? Because I love it. I freaking enjoy it, you know? But I want you to think about this. And social anxiety exists all the time. You know, like I said, it's not a box you check and then it's gone, right? It's going to show up.
It comes in many forms.
It does. But what you have is the ability to step back and take control, right? And even if you're not, you know, a believer, right? There's things you can do. But for those of you listening that are, because I am, what helps me in any situation is being able to stop and have a conversation with God and just say, hey, you know, I'm wigging out a little bit here, or can you help me? That has never, ever caused me any harm, stopping and having that conversation. And I would encourage you to do the same. Again, even if you're not a believer and you find yourself at a place where you just feel like you've come to the end, right? At least give him, I'm talking about God, the creator, give him a chance, right? And throw a conversation his way. There's a good chance he'll surprise the hell out of you. So, anyways, social anxiety, man, that's a tough one, you know? And I feel like we didn't even help anybody right now, but
this is social anxiety part 1.
Right. But I mean, it's a conversation that I think people need to have. And I'm hoping that maybe if nothing else, maybe, you know, someone that's listening, maybe you don't gain, you know, what you were hoping to gain from this, but maybe it strikes up some conversation with some of the people you're with, or even changes the conversation you have with yourself every day. If you're so focused on all the things that are wrong with you in life, social anxiety, I think, is always going to show up in a bigger way for you than it does for others. So if you want to shrink that down, you want to shrink your enemy, in this case, down to size, start building yourself up. Start taking the negative energy, turn it into a positive, and figure out, how can I build myself up? How can I think more highly of myself? Those things just help you in every aspect of life, but I promise you it'll help you directly manage social anxiety better and overcome it better and quicker. Mm-hmm. Right?
And you have to believe it too.
You do.
When you build yourself up, it's not just saying, okay, I love myself and I look beautiful. You have to believe it. I'm over here shaking my fist.
And sometimes you need it. You need to hear it from somebody else, right? Sometimes you just need to hear it from somebody else. You need to be able to talk to somebody and open up to that person. I want to throw this out there. I can be that person for you, right? I can assume that anybody listening to this, you know me on some level. Reach out to me. Hit me up on Facebook. Message me. Hit me up on text me. You know, hey man, hey Nick. You know, I just want to chat, right? I will tell you that the thing that I think I'm most passionate about in life is people. And I've had a lot of people say, man, Nick, you should be a salesman. You're a great salesman. I think that the one thing that I enjoy selling to people, right, is themselves. It's not
pyramid schemes.
I want to sell you to you. I want to sell you back to you. I want to sell the version of you that you have, that you're capable of being. I want to sell that to you. Right? I'm not trying to sell you the, dreams and, I'm trying to sell you. I love that because I happen to see naturally the good in people.
He does.
And I can be that person for you. Right? I don't care if you're listening right now and you're one of my closest friends and you're like, dude, I would never do that to you because we're like cool. Forget that crap, man. I could be that guy. I can be that guy that you can sit down and talk to and you can open up to. I can be that guy you can sit down and break down into tears with. But you need to be intentional, if it's not me, about having those conversations with the people that you know have your best interest at heart, the people that you know value you and your success. Those are the people that you want to talk to, because those are the people you want to hear from. And those are the people that are going to not just tell you what you want to hear, they're going to tell you what you need to hear too. And I'm just putting that out there for those of you listening. Anytime, message, text, call, that is important to me. Oh, yes. Well, if you know me, you just shoot me a text message, but you can also go onto my Facebook, right? Nick Stretch. And you could go to our Stretch It Out podcast Facebook page. You could message me there. I think you could message me or Audrey there, because Audrey's finally getting back on Facebook. So I'm going to have her start managing that page. So that's a great place to go. Maybe you
haven't shared me with the page, but that's fine.
Yeah, I haven't figured it out yet. But I want to put that out there. We all need that. I think, we need more people doing what me and Audrey are trying to do. Right. And it's just, be kind and offer up a different perspective. And right now, obviously, we're not listening so much to you as you are listening to us. Right. But I'm a great listener too. And if you need that from me, reach out to me. I can be that for you. I think that to me is what's most important in life. It's one of the reasons, one of the big reasons. I was just talking to Courtney about this the other night. I said, the reason I'm doing this podcast, the reason I'm going to do my music, and I'm going to get serious about it, and I'm the reason I'm recording it and going to do some big stuff with it, and the reason I'm doing my little RC YouTube channel and all that stuff, I'm not doing it because I want the attention, right? I think that's usually going to be the misperception, wow, why does Nick want all this attention? That's not why I'm doing it, right? However, I know that a lot of people are going to think that, right? But again, I said, screw it. I don't care. I don't care about what people that don't care about me think. Don't care. Okay. But you know why I'm doing it? And one of the biggest reasons why I'm doing it is, I had a long talk a long time ago with, you remember Chuck Marshall, one of my best friends, just a great guy, great human being. And we don't talk enough, so, Chuck, if this ever reaches your ears, I'm so sorry, man. And I'm going to fix that. In fact, I'm probably going to end up giving him a call this week just because I talked about him. But I remember him having a conversation with me that really stuck with me. And it was probably just a couple years ago. I really don't even remember, but it stuck with me. It never really took root until I finally find myself climbing out of that really bad depression that I was in. But it stuck with me long enough that I was able to pull it out and shine it off and look at it again. And he said something to the effect of, your kids are watching what you're doing and are likely going to use that as their North Star, right? Like, naturally. Okay. And if my kids, and I've told my kids this, I said, look, you don't have to be the smartest kid in class. You don't have to have straight A's. I don't care about that as much as I care about you understanding how to be kind. That's important to me, right? Mm-hmm. And understanding how important it is to find something you love and to freaking do it. That's so much more important to me. Right. And I tell my kids this with conviction. They know that. They know that. You will never be afraid to bring home a report card to me because I'm your biggest supporter no matter what the school system says you are. No matter what the grade the school system gives you, you're an A+ to me because you're my freaking son. You're my freaking daughter. Right? Yeah. I love you no matter what. But what's most important to me is that you know how to be kind and that you find something you love and you freaking do it and you do it with all your heart. That is why I'm doing what I'm doing. I happen to be the type of person that doesn't love doing just one thing. And for a long time, I felt kind of like afraid to do anything because I'm like, well, I can't, everyone says you got to do one thing, right? I got to focus on one thing and do one thing great, or I'm just going to be the guy that does. I just said, screw it. I don't care. I'm going to do what I want to do. And if it happens to be 3 or 4 different things, I'm going to do it.
So be it.
Right. And that's what I'm doing, right? That's what I'm doing. And that's why I'm doing the things that I'm doing, because I want to do it, because I love it. I love it so much that I will carve time out to make sure it happens. But I want my kids to see that. I want my kids to see their father and their mother doing what they love, because that makes me a better father, a better husband, right? My kids get the best of me, right? Mm-hmm. And my wife gets the best of me, right? They don't get the worst version of me because I've poured the best of me out into into who knows what. I'm a better person. And I think this is true for every human on this planet when I'm doing what I love. And I don't have to wait to quit my job to do what I love. I'm doing what I love right now. And that is what's important to me. And I want my kids to see that. I want to be able to look back on my life and say, I gave it 100%. I gave it 100%, regardless of how much, fame or fortune came with that. I gave it 100%, but I gave it 100%. And I, at the things I loved. Right. And I want my kids to do that too. And I want to encourage anyone that's listening to do that. And I think those things helps with so much more than just social anxiety.
I think that's a big thing, because like you look at so many parents nowadays, and it's always just like, what's that saying? Do as I say, not as I do. That comes into effect.
Well, that's BS is what that is. That's BS.
Yeah. But I think so many parents probably get caught up in just, going to work, providing for the family, taking care of the family, everything like that, that they sometimes lose themselves a little bit and forget what it is that they love to do. Because I've seen that a lot of times in some couples and relationships with kids and things like that.
Yep.
But that ain't going to be me when I have kids. I'm still traveling, dang it.
Yeah, you got a ways to go. So
Nick said he's going to babysit.
Yep, anytime. Look, I've got people waiting on me to go to dinner. Some work friends. So
popular.
We're right about the yes, I am. We're right about the hour mark. Hour and 12 minutes. So, hey, shout out again to all the listeners. Thanks for submitting us, some ideas to talk about. Please send us some more. Again, message us, hit us on Facebook, Audrey on Instagram and Facebook too. Also, as a reminder, I just got us up on Spotify. We're going to be on iTunes and Pandora as well. It takes a little bit for them to finish the review. We might actually already be up. I don't even know. Google Podcasts. I'm just trying to put it out there wherever I can put it, just to make it easy for you to access it and listen to it. But share it, share it with your friends and family that you think could benefit from it. Let them, come be a part of this. We're going to do some other fun stuff. I was talking about making some cool shirts that we could sell to help just make a little bit of money to maybe help Audrey get a mic. Right. But, some shirts that say #CorrectivePerspective. We thought about that too. So just doing a lot of stuff, try to make it fun. And we're going to continue to try to grow our social media presence as well with the Stretch It Out podcast, and try to get guests on and so on and so forth. But we really want this to be a place, for you to come and grow. So, send us the things you want us to talk about. What are the things you want to hear about? By all means, just let us know, and we'd love to talk about it and hang out with you. So thanks again, everyone, for listening. Looking forward to doing this again in a week from now. This episode will be up Wednesday. So obviously I don't need to say that because you're going to hear it on Wednesday. But Audrey, you got anything else?
I just hope that everyone has an amazing week, and that they choose one thing to step out of their comfort zone next week. Go tell somebody their outfit looks beautiful, or go say hello and see if somebody needs help on the street, maybe.
Audrey, I like that. Why don't we take it a step further, and why don't you share it with us on social media? Share it with us on our Facebook page, Stretch It Out Podcast on Facebook. I think the reason I want you to do that is because I want to, with Audrey, I want to celebrate that win with you, because I think that win is going to be bigger. It's going to grow It's going to, to be bigger than you even thought it was initially. Doing that one thing. And I'm going to do it too, Audrey. I appreciate that. So give us some feedback. Let us know how it goes. Thanks again for checking us out. We'll talk to you guys next time.
Bye, everyone.
Peace.